Keep your mind open and listen to what is being said. Consider that what I am saying is more important than me. If I give some guidelines for practice to open your minds, stick to the practice regularly. Try to give little bit of your mind to doing some good to society. Do whatever people are doing, but not bad to others, and yet be able to carry on with the inner spiritual life. And please, don't worship me. This is the mission of the satsang. This is exactly what Babaji wanted me to do. So, we kind of finished the Upanishads yesterday, and I think there are many other things to discuss right now based on that. So I didn't bring the Upanishads. The moment people see those huge books, they get very discouraged. So let's work on this. Om akhanda mandala karam vyaptam yen characharam tatparam darshidam yen tasmai shri gurave namah ajnanatimirandasya jananjanam shalakaya chakshurumilitam yen tasmai shri gurave namah. So, couple of things to start with in this 1 hour and the next 1 hour. Then in the evening we will slowly go into Kriya if people are interested. So, first, what is the perspective of the Upanishads regarding the ultimate truth? How do the Upanishads look at it? And you should remember that they are among the oldest writings on this subject. Even in the ancient books of India, they are among the earliest writings on this subject. Thoughts on this subject, not even writing. Writing came much later. The perspective is like this, that we, all of us living in this world, live by our mind and by our senses. I mean, this is very clear. We see the world through our senses, all senses. And then the mind translates it into the impressions that it has got from the sense organs based on its past remembrances and understanding. So here, at the moment, there are two things, which is the body with its sense organs, which are the instruments of perception. I'm trying to make it simple so that you don't get all confused about it. And the mind, which takes in the impressions of the senses, processes it and makes it meaningful for us in different ways depending on who we are, where we are brought up, what is our background, memories and so on and so forth. Let's forget about past life memories at the moment, this life. Now, if this happens, according to the Upanishad, the mind is also, in fact there is a beautiful statement which says, the subtlest part of the food that you eat goes to make the mind. Which means, mind has also been put into the list of material objects. Today it's easy to understand because we have computers which do a lot of thinking for us in a way, but they are physical, they are not spirit, they are not the spirit, they are the usual. Well, if you have the spirit, it's nice to work on the computer, but even otherwise, the other spirit. So now, when you have a computer, and that computer is the mind for the time being for us, there is someone sitting at that computer and working and witnessing all that is happening. There is somebody conscious and a witness to it. Now the Upanishad is of the understanding that that witness which is behind the mind, since the mind is like a computer, so you can easily substitute brain, the word brain for the mind. Easily. They don't use that word, but looking at it. All the thought process, everything that is happening, including Upanishadic thought, is here. It's not here. So, this is the mind. Now, to this, the Upanishad says there is a witness which is conscious and is not just material. Artificial intelligence is material, but it can do many things which we do normally. Recently, as soon as it was introduced, a very important scientist said the only difference is that it has no consciousness. So, therefore, for each individual human being, I think this is better. I'm clearer than the Upanishad, right? I'm sorry. Upanishads are wonderful works. I'm joking, sir. So, the problem with the Upanishads, they are all originally written in Sanskrit. And therefore somebody has to translate, interpret, and then it's colored by the translator in some way. This is the problem. Here we are directly discussing the subject, one-on-one. One-on-many. So, you don't have to believe me now, you just listen. I'm joking. It's okay. So, for me it's like, it really makes no difference. So, the witness, which is consciousness and which is separate from all that is happening, and yet without which nothing can happen. I may have a very wonderful artificial intelligence gadget with me, but I have to be there. I have to be conscious at least of what's going on. I record the conscious. My conscious mind records it. So, what the Upanishad is trying to tell us is that while we have the senses, Panchaindriyas, the mind which is classified or named as mana, and then there is Buddhi, which means that which thinks based on the impressions received by the mind. Okay? Even that, beyond that, is the sakshi or the witness, which is consciousness. This is the theory. And each individual has its own consciousness. However, the Upanishad also says, elaborates, based on the experience of the rishis, not written for fun, that this individual consciousness, which is the witness of all the things that go on in our life, when it is through some method, either through thinking constantly about it, or through some practice which takes the mind to subtler realms, then this mind becomes quiet and not distracted and running here and there. But if this happens, then what happens? If this happens and the mind calms down and becomes tranquil and absolutely still, whatever be the method you adopt, sometimes it happens spontaneously at some points. And then one gets a glimpse of the conscious witness behind everything. And the Upanishad also says that when this happens, the person, the consciousness happens, the mind which is experiencing the consciousness realizes that actually it's not different for different people, the source is the same. It looks different to different people because it is colored by the different minds that envelop it. When the mind becomes completely free of distractions, still, then these differences cease to exist and there is only one consciousness. As long as these are there, there are individuals. This ceases, there is only one. Now, if somebody hits upon this, it's the mind that hits upon it. That doesn't have to hit upon it. It is already that. When the mind, which is pure and clear, understands this fact, then it becomes free. Because even though it may be living in this world, it doesn't get entangled in it and lives no matter pain or pleasure in tranquility. Now, also, when this happens, there is a feeling in the mind, that one is the witness, in the mind, that this is a wonderful thing. Shouldn't I share this with others? And therefore the Upanishad teachings have come. So they said, we have hit upon something. Shouldn't we share it? Because the mind, when it expands, it wants to share. You know how it is when you're sitting alone? Even the mind, our mind, you're sitting alone and thinking about something. Suddenly, so this is a good idea. Now what happens? Who shall I share it with? This happiness, whom shall I share it with? Usually it is the wife and you might be shot down. But in the sense, what do you mean? It could be the other way around also. The wife says and the husband says, forget it, you don't be silly. But there is this urge to share. There is this urge to share. Somebody goes paragliding, as we have discussed this. You please tell him, Joseph, and that when he goes paragliding, you know how he feels up on top? We also feel that way, without paragliding. So he volunteered to teach me last time. So this is the essence of the teaching. There is nothing else. All other things written are basically to move towards this point. And to move to this point of the mind becoming quiet and freeing itself from the differentiations of the impressions of the sense organs. There are different ways. I believe that there are different ways. There are some who say there is only one way. I said no, there must be different ways. The reason being that there are different kinds of minds in this world. Because of various backgrounds, various genetic modifications. We cannot deny it. You don't have to believe in past life, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But we cannot deny the fact that we are the result of 1,000,000 years of genetic evolution. This we cannot deny. So, in the genes that we carry, there are 1,000,000 years of experiences and understandings fitted in. At the moment, our mind has not developed enough to explore everything. We know only some. As we act, as we behave, these are the only things known to us. If you look at it in a different way, what the Upanishad is trying to say is that if you go deep within and if your mind becomes quiet, you might be able to get a glimpse of the traits which you are carrying for 1,000,000 years. May not be everything at once, but listen. And then finally you come to the root of all existence, where you don't worry about genes or this or that. You can wear jeans and walk around. These are not genes, but so now I said there must be different ways because we are all made. We are similar in many ways, but also different in some or many ways. So therefore, some of us are people who don't like to intellectually trying to figure out, you know that. There are people who love to walk outdoors, look at trees, paint, sing, dance. Have a heart, they say. If you talk to them about Upanishads, they say, hey, come on, have a heart. Please, open up. What is this all? Okay. So there are such people. And I think sometimes that most people are like that. Only few people are a little different. Well, if you have a judicious combination of all these traits, it's excellent. Then you become a sage. But generally, we all have different ways of looking at life. Some of us are heart people, emotional, some brain. So, there must be different ways of looking at it. Also, if what we are talking about is infinite, then there must be many, many ways of looking at it. Because if something is finite, there can be only one way of finding it. If it is infinite, there must be infinite ways of looking at it. Somebody even went to the extent of saying there is no way to it. I don't believe that. Well, there is some meaning in that, but basically there is a way. Even when I say there is no way to it, it's a way. I'm trying to figure out something. So let's think about first the hard way, the feeling, because that's how we start our life. You want to buy a car, do you think really you calculate how good it is, what is the fuel? No, you like the car. It looks nice, aerodynamic, nice color, good upholstery, nice to sit. And you press the accelerator, it moves nicely. My son refuses to sit when I'm driving. He thinks I might drive off the highway. He becomes my guru. Papa, we are not racing. Generally the reverse, The father tells the son. So, anyway. So, when we like something, we take it. You're going to see, you see a friend, a girl, boy or girl, depending on who you are. And nowadays even that is not there, but suppose. It's okay. What's the first thing that is something? Somebody may be very intelligent or whatever and so on, but you get bored after that. But if somebody is nice and sweet and good looking and smiling, then you like it. And then you find out many reasons why this person is best. That comes later. Generally, first there is this attraction. Most people. There may be exceptions. There may be somebody, as soon as he sees a new person, says, oh, let me think. There are very few such. I think they are the killjoys of the world. So, now there is this part which is called bhakti, which is to do with the heart. And for many people it might be very good to have, even if you are a so-called, I am a Vedantin, I like to find out who I am, okay, fine, good. But then also a little amount of feeling is necessary. Contemporary times, one example I can give you of someone who probably figured out his true essence of who he was or what he is, was Ramana Maharshi. Okay, I accept that. Contemporary times, I didn't see anybody else. I don't see. Maybe Nisargadatta Maharaj, in a way. I met him, so I know. I haven't met Ramana, but I feel. So, now in his case, so many people say, all this devotion, singing, I'm trying to find out who I am. But please understand that Ramana Maharshi, after having touched whatever he had touched, difficult to define, if somebody read the beautiful devotional hymns to Shiva, or if somebody sang beautiful hymns to Shiva in the Arunachaleswara temple, he used to shed tears for hours. What is he doing? Why? What is this feeling that he gets? Means what? Means when you go closer to that reality and when your mind opens up, your heart also opens up. They're mutually coexistent, they're not separate sections. This happens, the heart also opens up. You may not have gone through the heart, you might have gone through another way, but when you touch, the heart also opens up. Love, devotion, compassion, these come naturally to a person who has touched the root, the source. Okay. Now therefore, when I say the heart way, does it mean that I should jump and sing and become hysterical? You may, if you want. It happens in pop music concerts also. Fine. No objection here. But when you say devotion, it actually means a loving feeling, a kind of magnetic feeling in the heart which takes you towards the divinity. And usually it's accompanied by music. I'm sure many of you know this, but Albert Einstein, who is, even though he is not, but is the key person in the understanding of laws of physics, including theory of relativity and so on, was a wonderful player of the violin himself. Not only would he listen to music, but he also used to play. And he once said that if he had not become a scientist, he probably would have become a musician. Now, if somebody goes up to high school and learns Newtonian physics and says, oh, because I'm a physicist, I'm not into all this emotional stuff, which is music, shows ignorance. So, and he also said that his solution of, I recently got a book which says unknown aspects of Albert Einstein, and his son and somebody who worked with him, they all contributed to it. Apparently Einstein said that much of the answers to his equations came not when he was in a lab or when he was calculating, but he was with his violin. So there is a connection between these two. When the heart opens, the other also opens up. And also when the other opens up, if it has really opened up, the heart also opens up. That's what I'm trying to say. So music. Now look at music. I always look at this in this way. So if I have repeated it, I'm sorry. I keep repeating it because it is so important. When you think, what we are trying to do is to go beyond ordinary thought. We are going to go behind the mind and look at consciousness. And that is possible only when the mind is subsided. We are looking at that. Now, thought is mind. You cannot conceive of a mind without any thought. Even when I say, I think I have reached this thoughtless stage, I'm thinking. I'm there. It's not gone anywhere. Maybe there are no other thoughts, but I feel, no. No. The only way to be thoughtless is to get unconscious. You don't have to do any sadhana for that. Good strike on the head with a crowbar. You're thoughtless completely. So, it's a wrong expression actually, thoughtless. There is no thoughtless. We can say the mind has subsided and the thoughts have become quiet. You can say that. And there is still the witness which now is the mind at the moment. Anyway, when you think, have you noticed that everyone thinks in a language? I don't know if you've thought about it. We all think in some language. Alles klar? We all think in a language. So, if we think in a language, the question is there something similar to thought which the mind can feel and which is not part of a language? Now, language is useful. If I didn't know English or any other language, I can communicate with you. That's a practical thing. I cannot communicate. But language also divides. It can unite, it can also divide. Because by nature, when you have two languages, already you have divided your mind to two. That is, the division is built inside it. You would say, no, but we are all one here. We are all one when we are speaking the same language, holding the same flag. You know what happens. Now, therefore what happens? When you are different than somebody else, there is divisiveness. So language, we are asking, is there thought? There has to be something, or something similar to thought, without language. The only things we know about this is one is feeling. Sometimes when there is a strong feeling, there is no need to define it in any way, thought. And always with music. Yeah? Now, I'm not talking about the lyrics. I'm not talking about lyrical songs or music. I'm talking about pure music, let's say. Somebody is playing the violin. Somewhere in Vrindavan, a cowherd is playing the flute. A man is sitting quietly in a beautiful place in his little bedroom with the window open, looking at the birds and listening to Beethoven or Mozart symphonies. There is no language. And perhaps if you are standing down and listening to that music, you don't know what language he speaks, but you understand the music. I mean, you don't understand, you enjoy it. Because music has a way of gripping your mind and quietening the waves into a certain pattern, rhythm, which makes it absolutely enjoyable. Why are we enjoying it? Because the mind has calmed down and the enjoyment of the self, which is the witness, is coming through. It doesn't come through because it is always agitated. You don't break my thread with your hand. Keep it later. He's a good friend, I can talk to him. Hold on. So, suddenly some intellectual question which is okay. Now, I'm going to another thing, which is yoga of self-observation and so on. It is also linked to the yoga of living in this world and having desires and so on. Suppose I feel that my happiness depends on acquiring something. Let's say, we all have that. Everything is fine, but we say, everything is fine, but if I could buy a new fridge, it would be better. I mean, it can be anything. Dangerous when you say everything is fine, but maybe if I have a girlfriend, if you're already married, better. There are many ways it comes. And because I'm not able to share my creative ideas with the wife. Any excuse. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say, give you an example. That I want something, and I think if I have that, whatever it is, then I will be happy. I'll be very happy. Nice. So I work very hard to acquire it. I may not be the person who has enough money to buy the fridge immediately, so I work hard. I go to the bank, I sit with the manager, I manage somehow, and then one day the fridge arrives, okay, and I'm very happy. I might even hug the fridge. Nobody's around. I'm very happy. In that moment, I'm very happy. And then, for some time, the happiness goes on. And I think that I'm happy because I have acquired the fridge, the refrigerator. It goes on for some time till another thing occurs, which I need to get, whatever. Or I need to dispose of this thing. So the happiness which exists, I think, depends upon my acquiring the fridge. Now the yogis say that, man, you may acquire a fridge or you don't, that's okay, up to you. But your happiness, when you have already acquired the fridge, is not because you have acquired the fridge, but the mind has stopped craving for some time. Because when it has come, then you have no more craving for it. When you have no more craving for it, the mind is not reaching hard trying to catch it, and therefore it is silent. What happens when it is silent? The bliss of the real self percolates a little bit to the mind. But then again we want another thing, because you think it depends on the external. It actually is because there is a gap in your craving. So says the yogi, can we do it as a permanent thing instead of worrying about those things? Can we find the gap in the craving? Can we realize that when there is a gap, we are so happy, so why get into this at all? Let's hit the gap directly. Why? Sometimes, even in, this is the process of jnana yoga, thinking, and also to do with your thought processes. And even in that, music helps many times. If you enjoy pure music, there is no craving for some time. Everything is quiet. So there is two ways of looking at it. The third way, of course, is the way of the philosopher, where he looks at this world, or she looks at this world, and says, this is an impermanent world, it's a temporary world. Is there something permanent? Is there a possibility of finding something permanent in the midst of all this impermanent world, which is here today and gone tomorrow? These impermanent relationships which are here today and broken tomorrow. Is there some way to figure out how to find that? And that is the way of the philosopher, which is called the way of neti, not this, not this, not this. And when all the things that you know of, that the mind knows of, are eliminated, then something remains which cannot be eliminated. That is the spark of the divine, which is the witness, which is the pure consciousness. This is another way of doing it. And as I said, sometimes even without attempting, it happens spontaneously for but a short period of time. Maybe a second or a minute. It can happen when you're going for a walk and looking up at the trees, because you don't... Yeah, the problem is, we always have an agenda. So when you're walking in the woods and looking at the trees, I know people who calculate how much can they sell the wood for. Then you have no beauty of the forest there. You go and sit near the sea and watch the waves. Believe me, there are people who then begin to wonder how to buy a cruise and have it learning and how many people will come, maybe how much money you make, gone. And then there is comparison. One night we look through the curtains and see there's a moon outside, so you pull the curtains. You go through the French window and stand in your terrace and you see the full moon. Oh, beautiful. Everything for the time being is all blown. You don't know anything. You're not looking at the moon. But it lasts only for a minute. Why? Because the other mind takes over it and says, in 1968, I saw a moon, which was, and then this moon and that moon, and last time when I saw the moon, what did somebody say? And then what did Wordsworth write about God? So sometimes it happens spontaneously when you look at something. And sometimes there are different ways of looking at, which are the different paths to the goal which have been described. The Upanishad says that it's like the ocean into which so many rivers come in. Once they get into the ocean, then they're the same. Indistinguishable. Or is it undistinguishable? Which is it? So, this is the essence of what the Upanishads say. Now, if you want, since we are all intelligent people, intellectuals and so on, I can go a little into the intellectual analysis which says that this world that we live in, even though it appears to be quite solid and to us, is doubtful, at least. Quite doubtful. There is a beautiful text. Basically, it's a Buddhist text called the Sadharma Pondarika. In the Sadharma Pondarika, there is a nice discussion about matter. Because matter is one thing that always stands in the way. Matter. I don't know whether we should go into that now. But it's about how relative things are depending on the observer. Maybe the same, but different observers have different ideas and different opinions about the same thing. And those who conclude it is different, they think of it differently. To give you one example, we won't go into the whole thing. If seeing is believing, suppose, that's the usual expression here, seeing is believing. If I don't see it, I don't believe it. Okay. Every morning, the sun rises. Every night, evening, the sun sets. Can you tell me, ask a high school boy, you say, hey, Dad, this is not right. The sun neither rises nor sets. It's the earth that is moving. What do we see? But every day we see it rise. Every day we see it set. So can seeing be believing? Can we trust our eyes fully? You know all those optical illusions you get in school books. Can we trust? Something may be straight, but you think it is curved. Okay, from there we go to our instruments of perception. Nose, hearing, eyes, tongue and touch. The 5 instruments of perception which are the only ones that give us data. And from this data, the mind manufactures its own idea. We are trying to ask, is the data that we get reliable? And if it is not reliable, will the picture that the mind makes out of this data be reliable? Take the eye. We are all born with a certain kind of lens in our eyes. Are there any ophthalmologists there? There. We have a certain kind of convex lens in our eyes. We are born with it. So, therefore, I see you in a certain form, as you are, depending on the image that is taken in after the light reflects on you into my convex lens, and then it's registered and I recognize you. Imagine that there is some creature whose optic instrument, the eye, is of a different kind. The housefly, the common housefly, is supposed to have a compound eye. There's many eyes put together here. We don't know what kind of lens it is. So how will it see her? You see her as like I don't know. I've not got into the fly's mind and looked, so I don't know. But it's definitely, it won't be seeing you as I see you. It will be completely different. But if it gets accustomed to it, it may call you by the same name. But when the fly says Jyoti and I say Jyoti, these are two different things altogether. Name is the same. We have no idea when an elephant sees us. What does it register? We really don't know because his eyes are different. Its focus is different. Maybe it gets scared because it sees us as huge beings coming. Who knows? Or maybe it thinks we are pygmies and crushes us. Depends on the instrument of perception. Apart from the prejudices of the mind that we carry, that's a different matter. So this is the eye. Suppose I was born with an eye which is not the same as the eyes that you have, a different kind of lens. I would have lived thinking that this is how you all look. Nobody can disprove it to me. You say, no, but I can see it. So how reliable is the eye? And therefore, how reliable is the idea that the mind creates out of this view? Okay. Time. Is time really measurable? Is the time that we follow the right time? Is time also psychologically linked, although watch says the same? Suppose this satsang is interesting. When it ends, you say, oh, that was very short, we could have gone on for some more time. But suppose it's terrible and boring, like reading the Upanishads. And then one would have said, my God, it's going on and on, when is he going to stop? Yeah. So it's so relative. The clock may be the same, but the time is very relative. Okay. The other thing is time, change. There can't be time without change. How do we reckon time? Because everything is changing. If nothing changes, we can't reckon time. Clock may go wrong, but the sun is there always, neither rising nor setting. Where is time? So what I'm trying to say is certain things which we think are absolutely certain are not. That's all I'm trying to say. And therefore, if they're not absolutely certain, they're relative. So in the midst of these relative things, is there something permanent which we need to look at? For the human mind, the mind can change from one mood to another, from one thought to another, but the witness is permanent. The consciousness is permanent. Now those who have experienced it have realized that this consciousness which we find in ourselves is also the same here. But a material object cannot be self-conscious of it. That's the difference. So when you found it, then there is no barrier of this and that. Mine and yours. It's all finished. There is only one. So, these are some of the ways of moving forward. And since there are many human beings of many kinds, there may be ways we don't understand also to move towards it. The brain is too much of a limited organism to be able to know all the ways that are there. It may not be. So there may still be other ways. Who knows? But these are the things I'm talking about which are known and which have been given, elaborated upon in some of the old teachings. One thing is certain, that the one who is conscious of all that is happening exists. After yesterday's discussion, I went back and I was looking at a dialogue with Nisargadatta Maharaj, who wrote this book called I Am That. He didn't write, somebody wrote it. And precisely one person comes and says, well, I don't believe in you, I don't believe what you say. He said, do you believe you live? Yes, I do, that's enough. He says, if you believe that you exist, more than enough. You don't have to believe that I exist or I'm saying it. It's okay. But can you deny you exist? No, I can't. Okay, go home. So, the great philosopher René Descartes said, I can doubt many things, but the existence of me can never be in doubt. I think, therefore I am. Now the Upanishad goes a step further and says, even if I don't think, I am. Because the root of thinking comes from there, but even when it is silent, I still am. So, even though it's not possible to sum the Upanishad up, I made a feeble attempt to sum it just now. And now you need to think about it. Don't suddenly jump up with questions. Think. Let it sink. Think about it. Very often, without allowing things to sink, we immediately ask. I'm not saying you shouldn't ask, you may. What I'm trying to say, we have been taught this way. Our education system is such that the fellow sitting in the front row who asks the first question is considered bright. He's thinking. But there may be somebody sitting in the back bench who's thinking about it and says, if I ask this question, may not be okay. I need to know more before I ask. He's disregarded. So, it's going to be 10 o'clock. 1 hour now.
1 hour 15 minutes.
Oh. There is I have a timekeeper here. I heard the other day a professor was, it's relevant to this, you might think it's a joke. A professor was leaving his job and getting another professor as a substitute. So before going, he gave him some advice. He said, listen, guys who are sitting in the front row, very intelligent fellows. Give good attention to them because they are tomorrow's scientists and, all that. Scientists, technologists. And what about, then he said, okay, but the fellow sitting in the middle room, give them more attention. He said, but why? He said, because they're not so bright, but they will become industrialists and businessmen, and they will employ these guys who are sitting in the front. And then he said, he said, the back row give complete special attention. Why? Because they can't do any of these things. They will become politicians, powerful people. Give them the best attention. So, it's like that. So, I'm going to say something. And if nothing works, then you can become a guru. Number of people wanting to hear that. And there's no investment, you see. There was something I wanted to say, and I missed it in this professor's story. It's just so important. It's kept my mind. Can you ask me something at least? Maybe that will ignite.
You were saying about pondering on the truth and the teaching you were exposing before, reacting to get some attention from you in form of question answers, and that this pondering was important. Is it the same process that we find in Vedanta called mañana, sravana, mañana, nidhidhyasana, after having hearing your teaching?
Now these are the traditional words used for understanding Vedantic teachings. Sravana, it simply means listening carefully. Now it's very interesting. Somebody might be hearing but not listening. You may be hearing but you may not be listening because you're, of course, apart from people who are always listening to half a sentence and thinking what question to ask. Apart from that, there are, sometimes you might be hearing, your ears are open, but you're not listening because your mind is somewhere else. So sravana actually means that you're fully there and fully listening to what is being said without comparison of any kind. Then the next one which you mentioned is mañana. Mañana is after you have listened, to give it thought. Think about it yourself first before asking somebody. You heard something, now you need to chew it before it becomes digestible. So that is called mañana. In your own mind, looking at the things that you listen, you might have missed something. Go back, sit down and say, okay, let me understand what is being said. And this is possible better, mañana, when there is nobody sitting here and teaching, because then your attention is also here. There is nobody there. Mañana. And nidhidhyasana is to understand the essence of what has been said through thinking about it yourself. It is also called swadhyaya. Swadhyaya, self-knowledge, understanding yourself. And then when you have done it quite a bit, and you still have something left which you can't solve, then go to somebody who you think may know about it and try to clarify. This is the Vedantic process of understanding.
So how to cultivate Vivek or discrimination? How to cultivate discrimination? Like how to know what is what?
What is discrimination?
So I'm using the word Viveka the way I understand it. So Viveka and Vairagya you mentioned earlier. So for discrimination of what is important, let's say, or what's not important, or where to focus, where not to focus.
If you are seeking spiritual fulfillment, if your aim is to reach the essence of your being, well, you can word it in a different way. My aim is to reach the divine, whatever. If so, then you need to weigh and fix your priorities. Fixing of priorities is called Viveka. Suppose I want to become an industrialist, then I have my priorities. Suppose I want to go deep into myself, discover what is inside rather than what is outside, then I have my own priorities. I need to work out my priorities. Then I need to involve myself in it. I need to spend time on it till you reach the timeless and so on. So this fixing of priorities is called discrimination. So for that, it's a word which means to discriminate, meaning to distinguish and settle your priorities depending on what you want. That is called Viveka. Usually people translate this Viveka as discriminating between that which is real and that which is unreal. In the ultimate sense, yes. But as a seeker of the truth, if you're really serious about it, Viveka, discrimination, means to fix your priorities. Do I need to work in this world? Okay. But I also need to look into this. Okay. So how do I make my time? How do I fix my interests? What can I do to do this? This is discrimination. And then after figuring this out, deciding that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Discrimination is already started. Look, I know that when you work, you have to give a lot of energy to that, seriously, any work. This is also work and you need a good amount of energy. So you can't afford to dissipate your energies in unnecessary things. To be able to understand this and to do what you really need to do is discriminative life.
Thank you.
Guruji, it's good that he asked about discrimination and you talked about prioritization. I'm new to, this is my first retreat and therefore I think I am allowed to ask silly questions, but this question is not silly, it's very, very important.
Okay.
I want to know...
It may not be silly for you.
It's a serious question. I want to know what's the Guru Karya of Satsang Foundation and for followers or disciples in our life, what do you want us to, some principles you want us to follow so that we are always moving towards the Guru Karya?
Can you explain that Guru Karya in English?
Guru Karya is the mission of the Guru. He said, prioritize, have discrimination and prioritize. So the Guru cannot do everything. Of course, Upanishads have given rules for everything and how to go about, but the Guru will prioritize something. And then he has a mission, he has chosen a mission. So that, I think, is the Guru.
You want to know what is the mission of the The first impression is that you should leave me alone. I'm joking. I won't even call it mission. You know why? Because this mission word has missionary. So what you are trying to say is, what is your agenda? What do you want us to do? That's what first thing I want you to do. Keep your mind open and listen to what is being said. Consider that what I am saying is more important than me. 3. If I give some guidelines for practice to open your minds, stick to the practice regularly. Don't expect me to bring about moksha in you. Find it for yourself. But all help is there, what is required. Right? That I agree. And since we are all generally also working in the world and doing our spiritual practices to find it. In this world, whatever be the thing you do, try to give little bit of your mind to doing some good to society in some way. Try to help people in some way. So this is in daily life. Do that, and I don't ask anybody to leave their house and family and go into the mountains and take sannyas. That's not my cup of tea. That's not my aim. My aim is also to show that people can live in this world, wear normal clothes, do whatever people are doing, but not bad to others, something that doesn't cause injury and trouble to others, and yet be able to carry on with their inner spiritual life. This is the mission of the satsang. This is exactly what Babaji wanted me to do. I'm just following his instructions because I thought that it's relevant to the present circumstances. I also wanted to become a sannyasi myself. I told Babaji, life is wonderful, Babaji, it's also nice and wonderful. You have no agenda, you can go where you want, you can drink good water from the Ganga, you get food anyway, it doesn't matter really. And I'm happy with this. He said, go back. He said, but why into muck? He said, why do you think in muck? And then he said, well, all these years you were here with me, I was thinking that your mind is expanding. It looks like it's contracting. You want to sit in a cave quietly. So many have sat. Has there been any result? He said, go out, do your work, stay there and see what you can do. He said, now that you have caught on to something, as you live in the world, it will expand and improve. And it took me some time. And then you can share it with others. Be with others. And you cannot share it unless you know how they live. So people who come to you, they're not monks. They'll be people who are like family. They have their children, they have their job, they have their wives, they have their children, they have their girlfriends. He didn't say that. But and so you should be able to discriminate and do what is good for you, for them, and take them on the spiritual journey. So this is what I tell everyone. And please, don't worship me. That can cause a lot of injury to your spiritual progress. Well, you should, if you like, you can respect me, that's a different matter. If you don't, it's okay. But try to understand what I'm trying to say. This is the agenda. And all people who have been with the Satsang Foundation for many years, there are some at least, who know this. I think they know this. And whenever they cross the border, I remind them. Hey, watch out. Unfortunately, I cannot be in physical contact with everyone all the time. I realize that. The early days it was possible, now it's not possible, there are so many people. But in some way, I try to do it to the best of my capacity. You can contact me on email, WhatsApp, whatever. But you know how it is. 200-300 emails every day. And I don't give it to a secretary or anybody because there are personal things that people write. I don't want everybody to know about it. So from this you can understand one thing. Satsang foundation is one thing, I am another thing. Please understand this. And keeping it this way so that any time I can walk out of the Satsang foundation if I want. The moment it becomes more important than the teaching, then I would walk out. I'm nothing. And I want you to be like that too. Anybody is free to get out of the satsang, no problem. As long as your spiritual journey is going on, it's okay. Because it may be that you found something here, it may be that you'll find something else, it's okay. We are not in the competitive business of building up a following, nor counting number of disciples. No. So these are the things, since you asked the question, because there are different kinds of people, so we don't know what background, so I'm telling you this. Now, in 5 minutes, I need to tell you something else, 9:15, right? And that is, the inner self is actually what is obvious in us, without which we cannot work, we cannot think. It's our consciousness. Keeping it there, we look for salvation always outside. Here I want to tell you a story of a man who is considered to be a joker, but actually is a great yogi. It's very popular, and people usually read for fun. It's called Mullah Nasruddin, the stories of Mullah Nasruddin. Mullah Nasruddin behaves like a madman, crazy man. But he's not really crazy. There's a lot of things, meaning in what he does and what he... And in one of the stories, Mullah Nasruddin stories, there are two countries, two states, and there is a border with a check post, customs check post. So you cannot carry any food grains or valuable things to the other side without license, whatever, you can't carry it. And you're checked at the check post, and if you're carrying anything, it's taken away from you and you're sent back. You can go, but you can't carry anything. So Mullah Nasruddin would appear every evening with 3 donkeys full of some kind of things on their backs, some bundle of things, all 3 donkeys. So the customs officer naturally would stop him, open it. They opened it, complete muck, nothing, brickbats and this and that and mud and clay, and so he'll throw it off and said, "Go!" Now this used to happen for many days. Then one day, after the customs officer at the check post, he retired and went to stay near the sea somewhere in the coastal areas. Mullah Nasruddin also took his retirement from I don't know what and went, just changed his location and went to the seashore and stayed there. So one day, he was going for a walk and he saw the ex-custom officer coming for a walk. So the ex-customs officer said, "Hey man, Mullah, sit down. I want to ask you something. Why were you doing this crazy thing? Every time we caught you there was nothing, there was only muck, and all 3 donkeys carried bundles of clay and brickbats. Why were you doing this? Now you can tell me, I'm not going to tell anybody. There must be something valuable that you're taking." Nasruddin said, "The problem with you guys is don't look for the obvious." He said, "What?" He said, "I was smuggling donkeys every day." You know? This is what it is. It is here, but we search there. for time. Thank you.